Welcome back to Saturnday, ladies and gentlemen, the show where we take a look at a Sega Saturn game from years back, share some memories, show some gameplay, give some background info, and give you my opinion on whether or not the game holds up today. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at a somewhat rare Japanese exclusive that doesn't get nearly enough attention. A quick glance here on YouTube shows only a handful of videos on the game, most of which aren't very informative and only offer the briefest look at the game. What game are we talking about? We're talking about Tryrush Deppy. It was originally released in Japan on November 22nd, 1996, exclusively for the Sega Saturn. I remember it quite well. By this time, I had made arrangements with National Console Support, based out of New York, to acquire my imports. They're still in business to this very day, although the competition from PlayAsia has clearly had an impact. I used to call them or deal with them through my local game store, Microplay, which you've heard me talk about in the past. Back then, I used to make day trips to the United States in order to pick up my games before they started to mail them out. I can't even begin to tell you how much money I used to spend on video games back then. It was nuts. The average import was somewhere in the ballpark of $100 to $125 US. I remember this game in particular because I managed to snag my copy prior to Christmas and played it over the holiday break. Oh yes, what fun times those were. Back in this time period, there were mascots for virtually everything you could imagine. And no, I'm not just talking about Sonic or Mario, I mean literally everything. Such as Spot from 7-Up, cats, bunnies, dogs, a walking star, a glove, and yes, even a bandicoot. This is just scratching the surface, as there were literally dozens and dozens of mascot characters over the years. So enter Deppy, an anthropomorphic taxi that walks on his two back wheels and is just about as expressive as a car has ever been. Developed by System Supply Tech and produced by Nihon Create, Tryrush Deppy is a classic mascot action platformer in an age when mascots were all the rage. The big difference here, as you can see, is that this isn't a 3D powerhouse, but rather a highly animated 2D platformer. It's also a rather unique one at that, albeit flawed, which we'll get into in just a few minutes. I need to make this statement right now before going any further, and you're gonna hear me say it a few times in future Saturnday episodes. Just because a game is expensive, and in this case, Tryrush typically goes for well over $500, that does not mean it's a super fantastic Omega Deluxe game. The truth is, this is a rarer game because the original print run was quite low. Both Nihon Create and System Supply Tech were smaller companies, and as a developer, System Supply Tech also created two other Saturn games that I know of, including the adventure game 3x3 Eyes and the strategy game Farland Story. Both have subtitles that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. I have both in storage and we'll be covering them in a future Saturday episode, but from what limited information I've been able to find out, it appears that Tryrush Deppy was their attempt to create their own mascot character, and given the limited reach they had, they did the best they could in terms of mass production, but ultimately there just aren't that many discs floating around, and it is a fun game. Therefore, its price is absolutely skyrocketed into the stratosphere. Tryrush Deppy starts off with a cute cutscene to tell its story. The first thing you might notice is that the entire game is in English. Literally everything, from the options menu to in-game graphics, displaying signs, and whatnot. The gist of the story is that you're making your way across the United States to win a race in order to earn prize money and save your struggling company. Honestly, the story is of no consequence, and it's basically there so that you have a reason for doing what you're doing. But it's extremely telling that the story is only ever mentioned in the manual and not even in the game itself. It really doesn't matter. You're here for the gameplay. So let's talk about the gameplay. To start, it's really simple. This is essentially a two-button game. And at a quick glance, you might think this is nothing more than a Sonic clone. Deppy has two jumps available, a quick hop and a regular jump. Both are done with the A button. and his jumps are determined by how long you hold the A button. Quick tap and he does a little hop. Press it as you would a regular jump, say in Mario, and he'll do a regular jump. You can press and hold the B button to charge a dash attack, which is sort of like the spin dash attack from Sonic, so you get an idea how it works. You can charge the attack while moving though, which is extremely handy. You may have noticed by now that there's a gas meter on the lower left-hand corner of the screen, which constantly depletes over time. In order to lose a life, your gas has to reach empty. As such, you are always on the lookout for gas containers, which are scattered around everywhere and occasionally drop from certain enemies. The charge attack also depletes your gas meter, so you have to be mindful of how often you use it. Outside of that, Deppy just gets stunned when he gets hit by enemies or lands on spikes or something like that, and really the only way that I found to lose life per se is to fall into a bottomless pit or water. That's pretty much it. So gas is really your primary concern as you make your way through the various stages. There are 5 worlds made up of 2 full stages per world, and finally a third stage that acts as a boss battle. There's also one final stage, which is essentially the final end boss. Stages have multiple paths to them, allowing for exploration of sorts. And I say this because for some reason the developer thought it would be a very good idea to prevent backtracking. Stages scroll forward with Deppy, and as such, you can't backtrack to a previous path. And this is ultimately what prevents Tryrush Deppy from becoming a truly amazing hidden gem. You see, each stage has a lot of hidden goodies, which range from freeing imprisoned ally characters to locating a hidden gold star that grants you access to a bonus stage. Without a world map, you have no way to replay levels you played previously, meaning you have to complete the whole game in order to go back to the beginning and try your luck at these stages all over again. And given all of the different branching paths available, it's highly doubtful that you'll actually remember which paths you took the first time around. That said, levels can be completed in under a minute, and you can polish off the entire game in about 40 minutes or so with enough practice. If the developer didn't want players to explore all the levels in one shot, they could have at the very least included a world map, something like Super Mario World or Donkey Kong Country, where players could select the next stage they wanted to play. I really can't stress this enough, that this one feature absolutely brings down the overall experience, and it's so unfortunate because this could have been a really special game. Boss battles are gorgeous with large, detailed sprites. While the attack patterns are rather simplistic, I really enjoyed all the boss battles in the game. And while we're on the topic of beautiful sprites, I have to mention the fantastic animation Deppy features and the great design work on all the enemy characters. Everyone feels so unique and lively. They did such a fantastic job with giving these characters life. The foregrounds are also well designed and feature a rich color palette. Sadly, the further your eye looks towards the background, the more simplistic things get. The first background layer often looks quite nice and detailed, but by the time you reach the second or sometimes third layer, you'll notice nothing more than just shadows of buildings in a far-off distance. As such, the parallax scrolling is not quite as impressive as I would like to see for a game like this. Maybe adding another 1 or 2 layers would have helped a lot. I just find it doesn't match the excellent frames of animation Deppy has. It's sort of like they focus too much on the characters and not enough really on the backgrounds and the environments. The music and sound effects do their part, and everything is lively and fun. The soundtrack isn't one you're going to really be humming after your gameplay session, but it is quite enjoyable while you're playing. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the final verdict. Can one justify paying over $500 for a cute action platformer that has one glaring fault? Personally, I can't recommend anyone pay that kind of money for a game like this, or any game. It's a fairly average action platformer, all things considered, but it features a truly lovable mascot character, rich colors, great animation, and a fun and lively soundtrack. The problem is, its big fault, the lack of backtracking, really hurts the gameplay experience. As I said, if they would have just added a game world or stage select map, that would have gone so far, and then the backtracking really wouldn't have mattered. If you can experience this game via other means other than purchasing the disc for outrageous amounts of money, then I say go ahead and give it a try, because you may actually really like it. This game will always hold a very special place in my heart thanks to the holiday 1996 memories I have. And replaying this game for this review certainly brought a smile to my face, but I'm not sure what all of you would think of it. And given the incredibly steep entry price today, you might just be better off finding something else to ease your Saturn cravings. See you next time with another episode of Saturnday.